And welcome to the kitchen at Laissez-Faire. Today we're going to be making a Baruvida candied nut. This is going to be an awesome versatile item to put in many of dishes, and I'm going to show you a couple that you can do right at home. Shelled Baruvida nuts. They're ready to go. We have weighed out 2 cups. This is going to be the base to our candy. We'll keep that aside. And what you're going to need next is a thick bottomed pot. The reason for the thick bottom pot is you want to have enough room in between the elements and your product to not have a spike of heat. The more spike of heats you have when it comes down to cooking with sugars, the more chances are for your product to burn, and we want to minimize risks at all costs. So for our first ingredient, our brown sugar, we'll do 6 tablespoons. For our next ingredient will be our cinnamon. We're going to use 1.5 teaspoons and a half. We'll do a half teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of vanilla, half teaspoon, tablespoon and a half of water, 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. One of the most important things about this dish is adding a bit of citrus. I find that it just brings out a little bit of brightness to your actual nuts. Once they're candied, it's less molassesy. And then it'll give us probably the exact amount of lemon zest we need. And that's gonna go right in. So this is going to be our candy, and the last remaining ingredient will be our nuts. But first, we need to take this, we need to start getting it to a light simmer to a boil, because you want to mix everything together and get it ready to toss the nuts in. So now that we have all of our ingredients in our thick bottom pot, we're going to put it on the element. I would suggest maybe at 80% heat. You don't want to get it too high, but you also don't want it too slow, else it's going to take forever. The goal here is to melt the brown sugar and get it to be liquefied, and getting all these flavors and all these ingredients married together before we toss in our nuts and candy and coat. We don't want to let it go too far. We don't want to get to any temperatures where they're too high, they're going to affect the nut. So I would say about a minute. Keep stirring. You can see that it's liquefying now. Our next step is going to be to put our nuts in, and then start to mix it really well. You want to coat each nut completely. I would suggest putting your heat down to about a 7 out of 10, 70% from high. We're going to let this go for about 3 more minutes on a medium heat. Make sure not to remove it from the heat too much, or else the sugars will stop being solidified and harden on you, and once that comes to the point of being hardened, it's really hard to reverse it. So once our nuts get a nice coat, we're going to pour them on our silicone mat. You can also use parchment if you don't have silicone, and then just spread them because these will stick. And then I would suggest maybe an hour of letting this set, but you probably won't need that much. And then this will be step 1 of our candied nuts. We're gonna let this set and rest, and then we'll break it off, and we're gonna put it into a couple dishes. Now that we have these beautiful candied Baruvida nuts, they're right out of the fridge, the sugar coated them perfectly. We're going to show you what to do with them in a dish that's gonna impress all of your friends. We have some beautiful heirloom tomatoes. I like to take them and do large wedges. There's a very beautiful tomato, and I don't like to cut it down too much so you can still see the dexterity of the tomato. I also like to make sure I have multiple colors, so it really just gives that extra oomph on your end plate. So we have 4 slices of regular tomato and 4 slices of our yellow tomato. We're gonna grab some salt, some pepper, extra virgin olive oil, and give these a good toss. It's very important to season your tomatoes. I like to do it separately in a bowl, that way they're fully coated. We're going to take these tomatoes and position them in a circle because they're these stunning colors it's gonna make this look really pretty. Next, we're gonna take our candied Baruvida nuts, and we're going to just place them throughout the tomato. Having a bit of a sweet component, especially if you're also using balsamic, is nice. It bridges those flavors together. I also like to use a lot of these candied Baruvida nuts because every bite you're gonna have is gonna have that crunchy texture and that blast of sweetness. We have a large burrata here, so we'll only be using half of it. We'll cut it right down the middle. Flip over one side. I like to dap it down. We'll put it on top of our tomatoes. Save the other half for later. And then we are going to take our balsamic reduction, give it a little drizzle across the entire dish. A little bit of olive oil. Same direction if you can, so it keeps with those lines. I like to garnish with a little bit of pepper and then some rock Maldon salt. I like the bites of the big crystals for this. And then we have these beautiful basil seedlings that I'm just going to place around like a crown. And that's it. Nothing too complicated. Just use really fresh, local, delicious ingredients, and of course, our candied Baruvida nuts. And then we have this, our candied Baruvida nut burrata caprese.